Welcome to another episode of the Global Fandemic, a series of interviews between MatchPint and global sports leaders looking at the impact that COVID-19 has had on social sports viewing and the trends that are emerging that will help you stay ahead of the game in 2021. My guest today is Charlotte Offord, the Senior Director of Marketing for the NFL here in London. In just over 8 years at the NFL, she's seen the sport go from a small but loyal audience into one of the biggest sports platforms in the market. Today, we'll be discussing how Charlotte has overcome the loss of those live London games, how the NFL has then brought fans together even when they can't be together and enjoy the sport, and how COVID has changed the NFL's approach to thinking about fan engagement and marketing in 2021. Really excited to welcome Charlotte. Charlotte, welcome to MatchPint.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
To kick us off, so many of us and our experience of the NFL in the UK will be those amazing games that take place at Wembley and the Tottenham Stadium, tickets selling out in, a matter of seconds or minutes, spice of, kind of American sport coming to London. Mm-hmm. Last year when it became clear that those London games weren't going to be taking place, mm-hmm. that must have been devastating for your plans and for your marketing strategy for the year.
Yeah, yes and no. I would start by saying that the landscape is slightly different for us in the UK in the fact that compared to traditional UK sports, we don't have a full season of games here in the UK anyway. We have 4 games. And so in a normal year, my team would already be creating kind of season-long narrative and working on initiatives to keep fans engaged, as well as bringing in new fans to the sport, with the majority of games taking place in the US anyway. However, the London games, obviously, as you pointed out, is a huge part of our story. So, definitely it was a shame to have lost them. But my focus at the point where I found out that we weren't playing games was, if we aren't going to play games locally, how do we then amplify the experience for the UK fans digitally and through TV for the season of games that we, at that point, hoped would still be taking place in the US?
So you've lost the games, big shift towards digital. We've still got this huge audience who love the sport and who've built up over the last 10 years. How did you approach that fan engagement, knowing that you weren't going to have that physical touch point at the games?
Yeah, so I think starting with one of the outcomes of the pandemic that I think everyone's aware of is it's meant that people are spending more time at home and fans aren't able to consume together as they usually would in a normal kind of world. So the focus for us was, how do we make NFL content, highlights, live games more accessible to the UK audience? So a lot of our work at the beginning, after we kind of found out, was how do we work with our broadcasters to really drive a stronger media proposition than we had before? So starting off, we were in renewal with Sky Sports for our partnership with them. And as part of that, we launched our first dedicated 24/7 NFL channel outside of the US. So again, that was really about more content available to Sky subscribers than ever before, but also at any point in the day that people wanted to consume. And whilst the Sky channel wasn't exactly in response to the pandemic, we were planning on doing it anyway. It was, really well timed in terms of launching for the start of the season. Then I would say on the free-to-air side, we wanted to strengthen our offering across our free-to-air network. So we renewed with the BBC to continue to basically have our popular Saturday highlight show available. But we also expanded our free-to-air offering into a new partnership with Viacom CBS. So that really gave us the opportunity to put Monday Night Football on Channel 5 and also create new lifestyle programming on a Sunday morning, plus a range of content with MTV. So again, just more content out there for people to consume than they were able to in the past. And then I'm also thinking about our OTT subscription product. We put focus on the get more people consuming across NFL GamePass. I think the trend we have seen, which we certainly didn't know then, was that subscription services have been increasing. But what we did off the back of the first lockdown was we opened up all of NFL GamePass for free during the off season. So basically fans could consume all the content across the GamePass platform at no cost. which included, past games, highlights, our full library of documentaries, behind the scenes programming. We have a US TV channel called NFL Network. All of that was available for free for people to consume right through the off season. And then during the season, we essentially created a new format called Sundays in 40. So we enabled fans to wake up on a Monday morning and catch up on all of Sunday's actions in basically a 40-minute condensed program. And then we made that available on GamePass for free throughout the entire regular season as well.
That's really interesting. So just talk to us about internally at the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
How do those conversations come about? Because presumably the NFL Network and the NFL Pass is, as you say, like it's a major strategic shift commercially for the business. So what sort of conversations were going on internally about, hey, we want to make this free to engage the audience?
Yeah, I mean, look, we were already thinking about how do we obviously own the network. It's our channel in the US, and the way in which we carve up our media rights is very differently internationally as it is in the US. So, it was something that we were able to put on free internationally that potentially would be different in the US. So we just looked at it and said, what can we offer our fans here in the UK that will give them more ways to watch than ever before, and how can we get as much content in front of our fans for free as possible.
And what did you see? What did you see from the data and the engagement? What was the story?
Yeah, so I mean, well, having a dedicated NFL channel led to increases in Sky viewing all season long. So we're really pleased to have come out of the regular season. We're up 34% on Sky for the whole year, which is fantastic. And even through the playoffs, the last few weeks, we've seen some of our most watched games ever on Sky this playoff season. So I mean, we're really pleased with the success we've seen across broadcast. As I said before, subscription products have increased, I think generally across a lot of different areas. But for us, we've seen a huge spike in people joining Game Pass throughout the entire season, and buying into a full season subscription. Again, I think that's up about 16% year over year. So again, really pleased with the traction that we've been receiving across that off the back of people just consuming more content.
And it sounds like you're, as a league, really quite involved in the content creation. You get a really strong flavor of the NFL's identity in the BBC show. I'm sure, lots of people that are engaged with the NFL in the UK, feel like OC and Jason are their cousins, such as the quality of their content. It sounds to me like you're pretty heavily involved in that partnership with the broadcasters, rather than it being a simple kind of, here's the content, go and do what you want with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think part of that is us kind of trying to make our content locally relevant to the audience. So what's important to me in the UK is that we're not just necessarily taking, what's being created in the US and putting it on a network in the UK. We're actually thinking about it in a way that says, what do our audience in the UK want to watch? And what is going to make someone become a new fan? And I think for me, local relevance is really important. I think, example of that is having international and UK players playing in the league. We've got, Christian Wade having converted from rugby recently and is now playing for the Buffalo Bills. You've got F.A. Obata, who has, just this incredible story of his journey right through to play for the Carolina Panthers. And, obviously he was able to play in front of the Tottenham crowd here in London in 2019. And so just having those players and those stories enables us to create content that will resonate with the UK audience.
And amongst all the initiatives that you've employed this year, what stands out? What are you most proud of in terms of the work that you've done in light of COVID?
The best initiative I'd say is probably the launch of the Sky channel, like hands down. I think, it was a huge commitment from Sky, but also a big moment for us as a sport in the UK. I mean, being able to have our own channel, 24/7 on Sky throughout the season is just just a huge moment for us as we've kind of grown as a sport. But it was great to be able to work with them on bringing the channel to life as well. So one of the things that we did was for the kickoff of the season and the launch of the channel, we created an initiative called NFL 32 Virtual Live. And basically what we did was lined up virtual interviews with players, coaches, alumni, NFL network talent, and team personnel, reporters, just from every single team in the league. And we gave fans that insider's look into what it is like preparing for a season ahead and in a COVID environment. And we had basically a 6-hour live broadcast that went live with people just coming in and out via like the Zoom style format that, meant people could kind of really see and get under the helmet of what was happening over in the US.
And how are you? I'm always fascinated with the NFL. I think it's such an amazingly interesting prospect from a marketing perspective, because you've got this core audience that have been with you for years, super loyal, were there as soon as you launched. Maybe they'd spent time in the States, or they were Americans who'd come over and were just like, great, this is awesome. But then you've also got this audience of completely new viewers who've, maybe some of them are coming from rugby, some of them are coming from soccer, some of them are coming from actually not really that much interest in sport as a kind of existing proposition. And, from a marketing perspective, how do you balance those two things in terms of trying to be as open and welcoming as possible to a new fan, but also have the level of integrity and depth of value that you're not seen as lightweight by the kind of hardcore loyal?
Yeah, I think the nice thing about the NFL is we are a sport and entertainment platform. So there are, if you're not necessarily naturally straight into the sport, we bring a lot of people in through the kind of social and entertainment side of what we do. And so for us, particularly in the UK, a lot of our initiatives are kind of one or the other. So a lot of the focus is about how do we grow a new audience and what initiatives are we pushing out to the audience to capture their attention. Like I truly believe that you really need to do something great in order to get people's attention, and then you need to give them a reason or some kind of an emotional connection with them to then be able to almost get their time. We're competing against a lot of other things, not just sports, but, also everything else going on in people's lives. And so you need to give them a reason to care, and then you get them into the sport and they start to give you more and more of their time. And hopefully the product speaks for itself after that, once they start to consuming. And if you're giving them the right content based on their level of knowledge or based on, why they've come into the sport, they should naturally start to then hopefully engage themselves within the sport, start to search for more content, and then go on to become bigger fans. And then, to your other point, I think the other side of what we do and focus on is how do we deepen the engagement with our current audience. So we know we've got, a huge amount of avid fans already in the UK, but, we can always continue to deepen their engagement with the sport and, make them, more avid than they already are. And so we do work on kind of key initiatives that keep them engaged throughout the season.
So if you were to give, one piece of advice to someone coming new into a marketing role, taking on a fast growing sport that already has a small, engaged base from which to grow, what would your, top bit of advice be, given the success that you've had over the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's all very well to kind of continue to create things that will grow your sport, and that's really important to the future of the business. But don't ignore the people that have been with you for a really long time, and make sure that you are continuing to deepen that engagement with them. Because I think sometimes, it can be one or the other, but it shouldn't be one or the other. It should be, both groups, both individual groups are just as important as each other.
That issue of, loyal fans and not ignoring them is an interesting one, because I suppose pre-pandemic, there would have been all of these social communities, there would have been these events, I'm familiar with some of the amazing, events that you have hosted around, whether it's the Super Bowl itself and kind of big ticketed fan zone style events, or whether it's VIP at Wembley, or even if it's, kind of having screening of draft films and, stuff like that. It's that opportunity for people to come together and share their love of the sport. There's a kind of organic thing where you just create the platform and then the fans come and inhabit that. Obviously, that's not been around. You haven't been able to do that. You haven't been able to create a space for those loyal fans to connect. So, for something that is such a social sport, when you think about, as you say, the sports entertainment nature of the NFL, how have you tried to tackle the issue of, I guess, the challenge of trying to bring fans together when they can't actually be together?
Yeah, so I think, a key objective for us as we kind of went through last year was, how do we keep those fan communities alive, and how do we keep them connected even in a time where people can't physically be together and there's no live events taking place? So a couple of ways in which we did that was delivering a stronger kind of second screen conversation on a Sunday and Monday evening. So during the live games via social channels, specifically on Twitter and Facebook, where we know that's where our core UK community lives, we would basically do better integration with our broadcasters. So essentially, we integrated the live social conversation into the broadcast, and then having our show host have that conversation back with the fans live on air. And so one example of that was with Monday Night Football on Channel 5, with it being through the night. We created a community which organically ended up being called the 3 a.m. Club by the fans, actually. But where, fans were up all night watching the game and joining in the chat via social. We had celebrities and influencers from both the UK and the US joining the broadcast in the breaks live, and, having that conversation about what's happening in the game as the game was, playing out. And then that in turn created more social buzz, back with the fans. And what was really great to see is fans were sending us in all sorts of, pictures and videos of themselves, memes of themselves, wearing pajamas, watching the game, staying up late. So it was a really fun social community that I think really kept our core and avid fans engaged. Another thing that we also did was our NFL UK live events. So previously, in a normal year, we would do a few NFL roadshows that would go around the UK, and that was really about bringing players over from the US and taking them all over the UK, hosting these live Q&A sessions every night for a week. And obviously, we weren't able to do that this season, so we turned those events into virtual events. And I think you've seen a lot of rights holders and companies kind of do these more virtual events, and it's been a format that's been more accepted. But we really saw big success in this format, and I think one for us because it enables us to host an event with a lot more fans from anywhere in the country and even outside of the UK. And we were also able to bring more players, talent, and from the US, as the commitment wasn't come and travel to the UK for a full week. It was an hour of their time from their home. And so it really unlocks the option to have much higher caliber talent, but also get the talent's time for a decent period and more of them. So that was a really successful format for us. We're actually hosting one next week on the 4th of February for Super Bowl. So again, details are on the website, but yeah, we're hoping to have some really cool guests joining us from across the pond to talk about what it means to be part of Super Bowl or to be part of the league and the lead through the playoffs. And then in the US, as you kind of mentioned, we're very good at pulling together these kind of grand, large-scale fan-facing events. And I think one of the things that came up last year was the NFL draft being in April. And I think that was, just after, the lockdown really started and things started to really kick off from a COVID perspective. And so the team over there created the first ever, virtual NFL draft back in April. With players kind of celebrating being drafted at home, which was a really different format from what we were used to. The commissioner was at home in his basement, and fans were tuning in from all over the world to watch what in that time, I don't think there was really any other live sport happening at the time because everything had kind of been shut down. And so whilst it wasn't necessarily a live game, it was live action kind of happening as young players, college players were getting drafted into the league. And for the UK, we saw coverage of up 56% year over year on our draft coverage just by having that format available and people tuning in. So that was super exciting.
I suppose that plays to a point that you made earlier about, this kind of, for a sport that actually takes place over just 21 weeks in the year, less than half the year, that kind of all year round 24/7 365 content is a really interesting proposition. It means that because I suppose you've got that well established in the US,
mm-hmm.
Actually in that period from April, May, June, when there was no sport on and no one could go out of their homes.
Yeah.
I guess the NFL was actually already set up to have an engine that produced new content and news through that period. And I mean, for anyone watching or listening that, doesn't know about the draft, it's quite a unique event to American sport, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Really is. It's a three-day event that essentially has young players from the college system coming through and actually being welcomed into the family of the NFL. And so it's super exciting. And obviously for those players, it's like a dream come true to go from being a college player to making it into the professional league. So it's a unique experience, but it certainly actually worked really well as a virtual experience as well.
Mm. And how do I suppose the same with all sport, but American football is a sport that you can have absolutely huge moments. You think of Hail Mary throws where a team looks like they're totally out of it, and then a quarterback throws the ball 65 yards and essentially a hope to nothing.
Yeah.
And it changes the game, and it's the last minute, and suddenly the Redskins have beaten the Dolphins when it looked completely unlikely for the entire game, the hour after that. And I think that one of the things that does, I think here about the Minnesota playoff game 3 or 4 years ago with that extraordinary last minute play, that creates this amazing euphoria where everyone gets up off their seat when they're in the stadium and when they're packed in bars. Do you have any sense of how fans feel about the product at the moment when they're not able to be sat side by side, shoulder to shoulder with their fellow fans, and how you and they have sought to introduce that kind of excitement and joy to the viewing experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier in the fact that for UK fans specifically, that in-game person watching in a stadium experience only happens a number of times a year for them anyway. And so I think our fans here are really used to that kind of creating their own viewing experience from home anyway. So I think it's slightly different from us than maybe other sports here in the UK, where there is a load of games that happen all the time and fans are used to having, a season pass to constantly be, viewing them in person. But, I think our fans, certainly came together. And I think, as I was saying, the social communities really help. And I think us putting on kind of virtual events has really helped. And it's important that, our Facebook group, for instance, is basically run by fans. So essentially they are the ones that are posting about what's going on. They're having the conversations themselves, and it almost acts as a bit of a forum for fans to interact with each other. So, I think on that note, I think it's very different for us as a sport here. We're always trying to create a year-long, a year-long marketing plan of different initiatives that are taking place. And, we do have a short season, but we have, the combine, then the draft, and then you're kind of building up to the season. Then you have the season for 6 months, and then the playoffs gets really exciting, and then you've got Super Bowl, and then you're kind of back to combine again. So we really do fill in a calendar quite easily of a lot of things going on.
So let's talk about Super Bowl for a second. I'm sure there are lots of people working for brands or other leagues or whatever who I expect are extremely jealous of the fact that once a year you have this one night that is pretty extraordinary, where you've got fans who just kind of take it upon themselves to go all out. You hear these amazing stories about people just turning their living rooms into stadiums. You have stories about, bars taking record nights and people staying up, sort of 24-hour celebrations. What are some of the ways in which you, as a rights owner, can help facilitate that? And specifically looking ahead to this year, where obviously you can't host those big events. What are some of the things that you're doing for the Super Bowl, either through your partners or your own initiatives or supporting fans, to enable fans to still have that incredible Super Bowl experience?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I'll start with the fact that Super Bowl is a really, really exciting night and, obviously the pinnacle of our season. And what's great about Super Bowl is every year it's truly different from the year before, and it's truly different from any other year that we've hosted something. I think that's because it rotates into different cities every year. And so every time you're in one, or every time everything's different about it, because the city is different and is bringing something unique to it. But I think for us, I think, the environment's obviously changed this year for us, particularly. We used to host, a few years back, we used to host like Super Bowl parties. And we used to also have, in more recent years, a lot of brands and, publishers hosting parties as well on their own. And you're obviously seeing the pub culture really just blows up usually in a normal year with a lot of pub chains around the country desperate to really create their own Super Bowl experience on that Sunday evening and getting late licenses and things like that. So it's a really exciting moment for us, and the nice thing about it is it's watched by not just people that are fans of the sport, but all these people kind of jump on board for the Super Bowl just because it's such a big celebration. But this year, obviously, we've had to really adjust our plans to the current environment. It's been important to us that our fans follow the rules and stay at home. So as a business, we've just needed to adapt and create initiatives that allow our fans to engage with the sport, engage with the Super Bowl, but in a safe way. And one example this year is we're working with Morrison's Supermarket to create, a big night inbox. So people can go on to Morrison's and purchase a box that essentially is everything you need to celebrate the Super Bowl in one delivery. It has all the snacks, all the treats that you need for the big game. It has, pizzas, everything you need for dinner. But it also comes with bunting and balloons and, all these decorations that are there to decorate your home and make it bring the Super Bowl experience to life inside your own home. Even though you can't kind of celebrate with your friends. And what we're also doing is creating some virtual hangouts for our fans. So what we're trying to do is invite people into this kind of virtual environment where people can kind of watch together. They're watching at home, but they're also sharing and reacting to the moments in the games with other people. And then we'll be capturing those reactions and pushing them out to the social community.
So two really interesting things there. One, when you're putting together the package for people at home, first of all, what are the key components of that package? Like, what makes it a great Super Bowl experience at home? What goes into that package?
Yeah, so I think it's about, and I think this about the NFL, where food's a massive part of who we are. And so it's making sure that, you have enough kind of American style food, or food that really brings that kind of celebration of what is a very big American sporting moment to life. But then I think we've done it with a little bit of a UK twist in the fact that we've put things in like bunting and stuff to decorate the house, because when people go to a party or a Super Bowl party, it is kind of about it being a party. So whilst we can't have parties this year, you can certainly dress up your living room and have all the food that you want and share it with your own family or your flatmates or whoever you live with, and still have a really nice time.
Big party for one.
Yeah, exactly.
but I suppose, as you say, trying to host hangouts where people might physically be in a party for one, but kind of digitally in a party for many. Are you using a particular platform for that?
I think we're literally just using Zoom. So it will just be inviting people in to kind of consume together. They obviously can have some conversation, but I think the ultimate goal is really about how they react and what's happening on the screens, and them feeling like that if they are by themselves or if they are with with their families, that they are also sharing it with people that are like-minded and fans that also love the sport as much as they do.
And just going back to the kind of the packages, is that something that you guys have put together independently, or have you worked with some of your commercial partners and sponsors to facilitate that?
Yes, we've worked with our commercial partners to facilitate it. So the pack includes, products from Pepsi, products from Old El Paso, products from a load of different partners that we already work with, and packaged all together with obviously the help of Morrison's to kind of do the delivery of that box. And then we've kind of worked with Morrison's directly to add in all the Super Bowl branded pieces that we think will really bring people's night to life.
Amazing. So just finally, just reflecting on the year that you've had, and really interesting to hear that. I think it's easy to forget that the NFL in the UK is way more than the games, and that it's this all-round engaged audience. There is an amazing sport going on that fans want to participate in. You get that through the BBC shows, through the Sky Channel, all this sort of stuff. Nevertheless, I suppose not having those London Games, which I imagine are a major logistical undertaking, I imagine you've probably had a fair bit of time to think deeply, perhaps, that you weren't expecting this year about, what sort of initiatives are really important that can be strategically launched over the coming years. So I'm just interested in, what are some of the things that you've been able to think about and look at as you think ahead to, post Super Bowl 2021, 2022, and tell us a little bit about kind of what your thoughts are, how you've used that time to think about your plans in the future.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we've definitely been busy enough through the year, changing things up and, bringing things to life in the current environment. But certainly the lack of London Games has allowed us as an organisation to really look at the ways in which we can deepen our community footprint. So, and, really, we're soon to develop some, or soon to launch at least, some programs that will use American football, the sport, to really kind of create change in important areas of the community. So we previously had partnerships with charities like the Big Kid Foundation, and which we partnered with to bring the sport of American football into their curriculum and open it up for children within the community to have a go and participate in a sport that potentially is not what they would usually do, and that's been really successful for us. So we'll continue to do things in that space, but what it's allowed us to do is look at how do we partner with other sports organizations and other charities on some new participation schemes that will help us to get more kids active, but also help them to create further opportunities for UK youth, particularly in areas where they don't necessarily have access to, all the great opportunities that others get. And so, whether that be employment opportunities or education opportunities, or even in some cases, playing the sport, and even, that creating opportunities for them to play in the college system across the pond. So a lot of exciting stuff to come, but it's certainly been a time where we've been able to really develop some of those community programs, and we're really excited to launch them in 2021.
Amazing. One thing that you're really looking forward to in terms of the NFL in 2021?
Well, I mean, I think we're all just excited of the prospect of potentially getting back to live sport and at a level of normality. So I think, I'm looking forward to watching and also exploring. If we get back into stadium, I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how do we bring fans into the stadium digitally. So there's only so many tickets you can sell to a game. And I think the learnings from 2020 and how fans are consuming more digitally has potentially opened up an opportunity for us to explore tech that maybe allows us to share more of the in-stadium experience with fans that aren't there in person, but via digital formats. And I think we've seen a couple of, stadiums, particularly in the US, exploring with digital screens and people being on those screens, etc. And I think there's probably multiple ways it can be done. But I'm certainly interested to kind of look at, what's possible. I think there is also an opportunity to bring more of an experience to kind of bars and pubs and things. So I talked a bit about, the UK virtual lives or the virtual events. allowing you to access this talent that you weren't able to access before. And so it's, if we can do live Q&As and interviews more digitally, can we give people that are, at the pub with their friends and watching the game, can we give them an amplified experience that is like, now we're going to have, JJ Watt come on and talk about an interview, and you can ask questions, etc. So just things like that, I'd love to be able to look at and explore. And then I think for those watching at home, I'd like to look more at technology that enables fans to watch live with other fans, kind of like the virtual room thing we were just talking about. But chat, react throughout the entire season with each other. In this kind of in-person environment, but not in person in reality, invite players in to kind of watch with them. I think I know the technology already exists, and I think people are kind of starting to do it already, but I look forward to kind of looking at ways at how best to use that technology. And
so it's, essentially the ambition is to build a stadium that's 10, 20, 50 times bigger than the MetLife and welcome people all across the world into that stadium experience.
Exactly.
Amazing. Charlotte, thank you so much for sharing your insights and the journey you've been on over the last year. It's just watching the NFL's growth, since you joined 8 years ago. It's now such a well-established sport in the UK and part of so many people's lives. So congratulations on everything that you've done with the NFL. Good luck, with everything that comes up, and just delighted to see that you're bringing so much joy to people's lives with Super Bowl activations and keeping people alive through the pandemic. So thank you very much for sharing everything with us today.
Awesome. No, thank you for having me. It's been really fun.